The illusion and the truth. Here is a stunning, mathematically proven fact. If you get just 1% better at something each day for 1 year, you will end up 37 times better by the time you're done. But if you get 1% worse each day, you'll decline nearly down to 0. This isn't a motivational slogan, it's simple math. It is the law of the universe. It is the secret engine of compounding, quietly humming beneath the surface of your life, either building you into a fortress of success or eroding you into dust. For most of us, this engine is working against us. We struggle with the same bad habits for years. We make resolutions to lose the weight, to save the money, to learn the language, to start the business. And yet, here we are, this time next year, likely doing the exact same things. We convince ourselves that massive success requires a massive, earth-shattering action, a lottery ticket moment. We feel trapped, believing we lack the willpower, the discipline, the motivation. We feel like failures. But what if I told you that everything you've been taught about habits, about discipline, about achieving your goals, is fundamentally flawed? What if the problem isn't you at all? What if the very things you believe you need, more motivation, bigger goals, are the very traps that ensure your failure? This is the revolutionary and wonderfully simple premise of a book that has quietly transformed millions of lives around the globe. The Architect of Small Changes. The book is Atomic Habits, and its author, James Clear, is not a guru on a mountaintop. He began his journey as a writer and speaker around 2012, focusing on a single, powerful question: how can we live better? After studying biomechanics at Denison University, where he was a top-performing baseball player, he started experimenting on himself, trying to understand the science of continuous improvement. This wasn't just academic. As he reveals in the book, his journey was forged in personal tragedy. A catastrophic injury in high school, a baseball bat to the face, left him with a shattered nose, multiple skull fractures, and a brain injury that took him years to overcome. He had to learn from the ground up how to rebuild his life, not with one giant leap, but with one tiny atomic step at a time. His book, Atomic Habits, has sold over 20 million copies worldwide and been translated into more than 60 languages for one simple reason: it works. It doesn't sell you a dream, it gives you a blueprint. It dismantles the myth of overnight success and hands you a set of tools to engineer real, lasting change. In this audiobook summary, we will embark on a journey through the core of James Clear's masterpiece. We will not just skim the surface, we will dig deep. First, we'll shatter the illusion of goals and reveal the incredible power of systems. You will learn why winners and losers often have the exact same goals and what truly separates them. Next, we will construct piece by piece the 4 laws of behavior change. This is the blueprint. You will discover how to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. We will learn how to redesign our environment, how to harness the power of desire, how to make difficult things easy, and how to feel successful every single day. And finally, we will explore the path to true mastery. How to move beyond just having good habits to becoming a person who is truly great at what they do. So, if you're ready to stop fighting against yourself and start building a system for success that works automatically, then stay with me. The journey starts now. The compounding deception. Let's begin with a story. In 2003, British cycling was a laughingstock. In 100 years, they had won just a single Olympic gold medal. In the Tour de France, cycling's most prestigious race, they were even worse. In 110 years, not a single British cyclist had won the event. The situation was so dire that one of Europe's top bike manufacturers refused to sell them bikes, fearing it would damage their reputation if other professionals saw the Brits using their gear. They were a joke. Then, they hired a man named Dave Brailsford. Brailsford was different. He had a philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. It sounds complex, but the idea is disarmingly simple. He said, the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike, and then improve it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together. 1%, not 100%, not 10%, just one tiny, almost unnoticeable percent. Brailsford and his team started with the obvious things. They redesigned bike seats to be more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for a better grip. They had riders wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain the ideal muscle temperature. But here's where it gets interesting. They didn't stop there. They looked for 1% improvements in the most overlooked and unexpected places. They tested different massage gels to see which led to faster muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chance of catching a cold. They even figured out which pillow and mattress led to the best night's sleep for each rider. They painted the inside of the team truck white to help them spot tiny bits of dust that could degrade the performance of the finely tuned bikes. Individually, these changes seemed trivial, almost pointless, but that's not all. You see, Brailsford understood the compounding deception. He knew that tiny gains don't just add up, they compound, multiplying into something extraordinary. And what happened? The results came faster than anyone could have imagined. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, the British cycling team dominated the 2008 Beijing Olympics, winning an astounding 60% of the available gold medals. 4 years later, at the London Olympics, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. That same year, Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to win the Tour de France. In the following 6 years, his team would win it 5 more times. In a decade, they went from being a joke to the most successful team in cycling history. Interesting, isn't it? How does this happen? How does a team of seemingly ordinary athletes transform into world champions with changes that, at first glance, seem to make no difference at all? The answer lies in that beautiful, brutal law of mathematics we started with. The power of compounding. We overestimate the importance of one defining moment, and we underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. We think we need to make some massive, headline-grabbing improvement. But a 1% improvement isn't notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable. But it is far more meaningful. Think of it like this. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. They seem to make little difference on any given day. You go to the gym for 3 days in a row, you're still out of shape. You study a language for an hour tonight, you still haven't learned the language. The results never seem to come quickly, and so we slide back into our old routines. We fall for the compounding deception. But what happens over months and years is enormous. It's only when we look back 2, 5, or 10 years later that the value of good habits and the cost of bad ones becomes strikingly apparent. Your health, your wealth, your knowledge, your relationships, these are lagging measures of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. You get what you repeat. And this sword has 2 edges. Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits make time your enemy. Those 1% errors, those poor decisions, those little excuses, they don't just hurt you. They compound into toxic results. It's the accumulation of many missteps, a 1% decline here and there, that eventually leads to a major problem. So, The first trap you must escape is the belief that you need to do something big. You don't. You need to do something small, consistently. You need to trust in the power of marginal gains, because a slight change in your daily habits can guide your life to a very different destination: the valley of disappointment. Now follow this line of reasoning. If the math of 1% improvements is so powerful, why do we so often abandon our new habits? Why do we give up on the diet, the gym, the new project? We've all been there. We start with a burst of motivation, we put in the work for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and then nothing. The scales don't move. The manuscript is still just a few pages. The business isn't making money, and we think this isn't working. This, my friends, is a critical stage. James Clear calls it the valley of disappointment. And it is the place where most dreams go to die. Here's the trap. We expect progress to be linear. We think if we put in X amount of work, we should get X amount of results, and it should happen in a straight, upward line. But that's not how the universe works. That's not how compounding works. The most powerful outcomes of any compounding process are delayed. Imagine you have an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. It's 25 degrees. You slowly begin to heat the room. 26 degrees, 27, 28. The ice cube is still just sitting there. Nothing is happening. You're putting in the energy, you're doing the work, but you see no result. 29, 30, 31, still nothing. It's frustrating. You're tempted to give up. Then 32 degrees. A 1-degree shift, seemingly no different from all the increases before it, has unlocked a monumental change. The ice begins to melt. That is what progress is really like. Breakthrough moments are not the result of one single action. They are the result of many previous actions, building up the potential required to unleash a major change. Complaining about not achieving success despite working hard is like complaining about an ice cube not melting when you heated it from 25 to 31 degrees. Your work was not wasted. It was just being stored. All the action happens at 32 degrees. This pattern is everywhere. Bamboo can barely be seen for the first 5 years as it builds extensive root systems underground, before exploding 90 feet into the air within 6 weeks. Cancer spends 80% of its life undetectable, then takes over the body in months. When you find yourself stuck in the valley of disappointment, when you feel like your efforts are being wasted, you must remember the story of the ice cube. You must understand that you haven't crossed the critical threshold yet. You are not failing, you are building. The most powerful results are yet to come. People will call it an overnight success, but you will know it was the work you did long ago, when it seemed like nothing was happening, that made today's jump possible. You have to persist long enough to break through this plateau, what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. Can you see how important this is? The seed of every habit is a single, tiny decision. But as that decision is repeated, a habit sprouts and grows stronger. The task of building a good habit is like cultivating a delicate flower one day at a time. You just have to keep watering it, especially when you can't yet see the bloom. The goal trap. The lie that holds you back. For years, this is what we've been told. To achieve something great, you must set specific, actionable goals. You want to lose weight? Set a goal. Build a business? Set a goal. Win a championship? Set a goal. James Clear himself admits he approached his life this way for years. He set goals for grades, for weights in the gym, for profits in business. He succeeded at a few, but he failed at a lot of them. And then he began to realize something profound. His results had very little to do with the goals he set, and nearly everything to do with the systems he followed. And here we arrive at one of the most liberating and counterintuitive ideas in the entire book. What if I told you that you should forget about goals and focus only on your systems? What's the difference? It's a distinction. Clear learned from Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. If you're a coach, your goal is to win the championship. Your system is how you recruit players, manage your coaches, and conduct practice. If you're an entrepreneur, your goal is to build $1 million business. Your system is how you test product ideas, hire employees, and run marketing campaigns. If you're a musician, your goal is to play a new piece. Your system is how often you practice and how you break down the difficult parts. Now for the provocative question. If you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed? If a basketball coach ignored his goal to win a championship and focused only on what his team does at practice each day, would he still get results? The answer is a resounding yes. The score takes care of itself. If you want better results, then stop setting goals. Focus on your system instead. Now this seems radical, doesn't it? Are goals completely useless? Of course not. Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. In fact, spending too much time on your goals creates a whole host of problems. This is the goal trap. Trap number 1. Winners and losers have the same goals. Think about it. Every Olympian wants to win a gold medal. Every job applicant wants to get the job. If successful and unsuccessful people share the same goals, then the goal cannot be what differentiates them. The British cyclist wanted to win the Tour de France for 100 years. The goal was always there. The victory only came when they implemented a system of continuous, small improvements. Trap number 2. Achieving a goal is only a momentary change. Imagine you have a messy room and you set a goal to clean it. If you summon the energy, you'll have a clean room, for now. But if you maintain the same sloppy habits that led to the mess in the first place, you'll soon be staring at a new pile of clutter, hoping for another burst of motivation. You're left chasing the same outcome because you never changed the system behind it. You treated a symptom without addressing the cause. To improve for good, you need to solve problems at the systems level. Fix the inputs, and the outputs will fix themselves. Trap number 3. Goals restrict your happiness. The unspoken assumption behind every goal is, once I reach my goal, then I'll be happy. We are constantly putting happiness off until the next milestone. Furthermore, goals create an either-or conflict. Either you achieve your goal and you are a success, or you fail and you are a disappointment. This is a misguided, narrow version of happiness. A systems-first mentality provides the antidote. When you fall in love with the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. You can be satisfied anytime your system is running. Trap number 4. Goals are at odds with long-term progress. What happens after you achieve a goal? Many runners work hard for months, but as soon as they cross the finish line, they stop training. The race is no longer there to motivate them. The purpose of setting goals is to win the game. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game. True long-term thinking is goalless thinking. It's about the cycle of endless refinement and continuous improvement. Do you see the trap now? It's subtle, but it's powerful. If you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves not because you don't want to change, but because you have the wrong system for change. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. This is the core theme of the book, and it's the key to unlocking the door to lasting change. Hey there, do you like this audio summary? Then take 2 seconds of your time and click on subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. With this simple action, you will receive many more free high-quality summaries every single week. You can also send us your appreciation with a simple like on this video. Thank you, and let's go on. The architecture of good habits. We have dismantled the great lies that keep us trapped. The lie that we need massive action. The lie that progress is linear. The lie that goals are the key to success. Now, with a clear foundation, we can begin to build. We can become the architects of our own lives. And the blueprint for this construction is what James Clear calls the 4 laws of behavior change. This framework is brilliantly simple, yet profoundly effective. It's an operating manual for the human machine. The 4 steps that every habit moves through are cue, craving, response, and reward. Think of it as a loop, constantly running in your brain. The cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies the craving and becomes associated with the cue. From these 4 steps, Clear derives 4 simple laws to build a good habit. Make it obvious. The cue. Make it attractive. The craving. Make it easy. The response. Make it satisfying. The reward. And to break a bad habit, you simply invert the laws. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. That's it. That is the entire framework. These laws are the levers you can pull to engineer your behavior. Let's explore each one and discover how to apply them. The first law, make it obvious. Have you ever found yourself doing something without even realizing it? Pulling out your phone the moment you have a free second? Heading to the pantry when you're not even hungry? Our brains are prediction machines designed to automate our lives to conserve energy. And once a habit is formed, it becomes largely non-conscious. Invisible. The cue that sparks the habit is so common, so integrated into our environment, that we no longer see it. This is a problem. If a habit remains mindless, you can't expect to improve it. As the psychologist Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So, the first step to change is always awareness. How do we do this? First, with a simple exercise called the Habits Scorecard. Simply make a list of your daily habits from the moment you wake up. Wake up, turn off alarm, check phone, go to the bathroom, brush teeth, and so on. Then, next to each habit, ask yourself, is this a good habit, plus a bad habit? Are nandrosaurus a neutral habit? Ask. The goal isn't to judge or change anything yet. The goal is simply to notice, to see what's really going on. But what if we want to build a new habit? How do we make the cue for that habit obvious? You won't believe how simple the solution is. Researchers have a name for it, an implementation intention. This is just a fancy term for making a plan beforehand about when and where you will act. In a fascinating study in Great Britain, researchers tried to help people build better exercise habits. They had 3 groups. The first was the control group, just asked to track their exercise. The second group was the motivation group. They tracked their exercise and also read materials on the benefits of exercise. The third group received the same motivational presentation, but they were also asked to do one simple thing: formulate a specific plan. They had to complete the sentence during the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day at time and place. And the results? In the first two groups, only about 35 to 38% of people exercised at least once per week. But in the third group, the group with a clear plan, 91% exercised at least once per week. More than double. This is incredible, isn't it? The motivational presentation had almost no impact. But a simple, clear plan made all the difference. Many people think they lack motivation when what they really lack is clarity. Foggy notions like, "I'm going to eat healthier," are doomed to fail. We leave it up to chance. An implementation intention transforms that into a concrete plan of action. The simple formula is, I will behavior at time in location. I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. I will study Spanish for 20 minutes at 6 p.m. in my bedroom. Give your habits a time and a space to live in the world, and we can take this one step further. And here's the best part. You can link your new habit not just to a time and place, but to a habit you already do. This is a strategy Clear calls habit stacking. No behavior happens in isolation. Each action becomes a cue that triggers the next one. You can use this to your advantage. The habit stacking formula is, after current habit, I will, new habit. Meditation. After I pour my cup of coffee each morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. Gratitude. After I sit down to dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for. Exercise. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. The key is to tie your desired behavior into something you already do each day without fail. Finally, to make a habit obvious, we must become the architect of our environment. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. You are far more likely to be a product of your environment than you think. In a fascinating study, a primary care physician named Anne Thorndike wanted to improve the eating habits of thousands of hospital staff and visitors without talking to them at all. And guess how she did it? She simply changed the choice. Architecture of the cafeteria. Originally, the refrigerators next to the cash registers were filled only with soda. She and her team simply added water as an option to each one and placed baskets of bottled water next to the food stations. Soda was still there, but water was now more obvious. The result? Over 3 months, soda sales dropped by 4%, and bottled water sales increased by 25.8%. Nobody's motivation changed. Nobody's willpower was tested. The environment changed, and so did the behavior. We often choose products not because of what they are, but because of where they are. Your habits change depending on the cues in front of you. This is incredibly powerful, because it means you don't have to be a victim of your environment, you can be its designer. Want to practice guitar more? Don't hide it in the closet. Place it on a stand in the middle of your living room. Want to read more? When you make your bed in the morning, place a book on your pillow. Want to eat healthier? Don't hide fruit in the crisper. Put it in a large bowl on the counter where you can see it. Make the cues for your good habits obvious, and you will find yourself starting them without even thinking. The second law: make it attractive. In the 1940s, a Dutch scientist named Nico Tinbergen conducted a series of experiments that would win him a Nobel Prize. He was studying herring gulls. Adult gulls have a small red dot on their beak, and their newly hatched chicks peck this spot to get food. Tinbergen, out of curiosity, created a fake cardboard beak, just a head with no body, and offered it to the chicks. He assumed they'd reject it, but they didn't. When the chicks saw the red spot, they pecked away as if it were their own mother. But this is not all. Tinbergen discovered something even more amazing. The bigger the red spot, the faster the chicks pecked. So he created a beak with 3 enormous red dots on it. When he placed this over the nest, the baby birds went into a frenzy. They pecked at it as if it was the greatest beak they had ever seen. What Tinbergen had discovered is what scientists now call a supernormal stimulus. It's a heightened, exaggerated version of reality that elicits a stronger response than normal. And you will not be surprised to learn that we humans are just as susceptible. Our modern world is a minefield of supernormal stimuli, engineered to be more attractive than anything our ancestors ever faced. Junk food is a perfect example. For hundreds of thousands of years, our brains evolved to place a high value on salt, sugar, and fat, because they were rare and calorie-dense. Today, food is abundant, but your brain continues to crave it like it's scarce. Food scientists spend millions of dollars to find the bliss point for each product, the precise combination of salt, sugar, and fat that excites your brain and keeps you coming back for more. They engineer foods with dynamic contrast, like the crunch of an Oreo cookie with its smooth, creamy center, to keep the experience novel and interesting, encouraging you to eat more. We have the brains of our ancestors, but temptations they never had to face. And what drives this intense attraction? You might know its name: dopamine. For years, scientists thought dopamine was the neurotransmitter of pleasure, but now they know it's more nuanced. Dopamine is released not only when you experience pleasure, but also when you anticipate it. A gambling addict gets a dopamine spike before they place a bet, not after they win. It is the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. It is the craving, fueled by dopamine, that leads to the response. So how do we use this to our advantage? How do we make our good, necessary habits as attractive as these engineered temptations? Here we arrive at a brilliantly simple strategy: temptation bundling. Temptation bundling works by linking an action you want to do with an action you need to do. Need to get in shape but want to watch your favorite show? An engineering student named Ronan Byrne hacked his stationary bike so that Netflix would only run if he was cycling at a certain speed. He bundled the temptation, Netflix, with the necessary habit, exercise. Want to listen to the latest podcasts but need to do housework? Only allow yourself to listen while you're cleaning. Want to get a pedicure but need to clear out your email inbox? Solution: only get a pedicure while processing overdue work emails. You can even combine this with habit stacking. The formula looks like this. After current habit. I will, habit, I need. After, habit, I need. I will, habit, I want. For example, after I get my morning coffee, I will say one thing I'm grateful for, need. After I say one thing I'm grateful for, I will read the news, want. The hope is that eventually you'll look forward to the need habit because it becomes a gateway to the want habit. The craving for the reward pulls you through the necessary action. But there's another, even deeper layer to making habits attractive. And you won't guess what it is. It's the powerful, seductive pull of social norms. We are herd animals. One of our deepest human desires is to belong. Whatever habits are normal in your culture are among the most attractive behaviors you'll find. We imitate the habits of 3 groups in particular: the close, your friends and family. A study that tracked 12,000 people for 32 years found that a person's chances of becoming obese increased by 57% if they had a friend who became obese. The reverse is also true. We soak up the qualities of those around us. So, one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Surround yourself with people who have the habits you want to have. You'll rise together, the many. We want to follow the tribe. In the 1950s, the Solomon Asch conformity experiments famously showed that people would knowingly give an incorrect answer to a simple question just to conform with a group of strangers. The normal behavior of the tribe often overpowers the desired behavior of the individual. Most days, we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than be right by ourselves. So when changing your habit means fitting in, it becomes very attractive. The powerful. We are drawn to behaviors that earn us respect, approval, and status. We copy the behavior of successful people because we desire success ourselves. If a behavior can get us approval and praise, we find it attractive. Making a habit attractive isn't about tricking yourself. It's about aligning your habits with the fundamental wiring of the human brain. Use temptation bundling to create an immediate reward. And join a tribe that makes your desired behavior the norm. Do this, and you won't have to force yourself into good habits. You'll be pulled toward them. We've learned how to start good habits by making them obvious and attractive. But what about the other side of the coin? What about the bad habits that cling to us like shadows, the ones that sabotage our health, our finances, and our happiness? And once we've established good habits, how do we maintain them and progress toward true mastery? This is where we move from building to fortifying. First, we must understand how to dismantle the very architecture of our bad habits. As we learned, the 4 laws for building a good habit are to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. To break a bad habit, we simply invert those laws. You must make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Let's explore how. The fortress of invisibility. The secret to self-control. In the 1970s, during the Vietnam War, a shocking discovery was made. Over 15% of U.S. soldiers stationed there were addicted to heroin. Follow-up research showed the problem was even worse. As many as 20% were addicted. This caused a panic in Washington. The common belief at the time was that heroin addiction was a permanent, irreversible condition. Everyone expected a massive public health crisis when these soldiers returned home. But that's not what happened. And you will never guess what the research found. A researcher named Lee Robbins tracked the addicted service members when they came home. And what she found completely upended everything we thought we knew about addiction. When the soldiers returned to the United States, only 5% of them became re-addicted within a year. Just 12% relapsed within 3 years. In other words, 9 out of 10 soldiers who were addicted to heroin in Vietnam eliminated their addiction practically overnight. How is this possible? The answer is breathtakingly simple. They changed their environment. In Vietnam, soldiers were surrounded by cues triggering heroin use. It was easy to get. They were under the constant stress of war, and they built friendships with other soldiers who were also users. But when they returned home, they found themselves in an environment completely devoid of those triggers. When the context changed, so did the habit. This story reveals a profound truth. We have been told our entire lives that overcoming bad habits is a matter of self-control and willpower. That if you're overweight or a smoker, it's because you lack discipline. But what if that's a lie? Recent research shows something fascinating. When scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control, it turns out they aren't that different from those who struggle. Instead, disciplined people are simply better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. They spend less time in tempting situations. Let me repeat that, because it is one of the most important sentences in this book. Summary. The people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. Resisting temptation is an ineffective strategy. It takes too much energy. A more reliable approach is to cut bad habits off at the source. And the most practical way to do that is to reduce your exposure to the cue that causes it. This is the inversion of the first law, make it invisible. Can't seem to get any work done? Leave your phone in another room for a few hours. Wasting too much time watching television? Move the TV out of the bedroom. Spending too much money on electronics? Unsubscribe from marketing emails and stop reading reviews of the latest tech. Remove a single cue, and the entire habit often fades away. This is the real secret to self-control. Don't fight temptation, eliminate it. Make the cues of your good habits obvious and the cues of your bad habits invisible. Dismantling desire and building walls of friction. Okay, so we've made our bad habits invisible. But what about when we can't? What about the cravings that seem to come from within? To conquer these, we must make our bad habits unattractive and difficult. Every behavior has a surface-level craving and a deeper, underlying motive. You don't actually crave smoking a cigarette. You crave the feeling of stress relief it seems to offer. You don't crave browse Instagram. You crave social acceptance and connection. Your habits are modern-day solutions to ancient desires. The trick, then, is to reframe the associations you have about your bad habits. Highlight the benefits of avoiding the habit. Change your prediction. For example, instead of thinking, "A cigarette will calm my nerves," you can reframe it to, "Smoking will destroy my lungs and give me wrinkles." You begin to associate it with negative feelings, and it becomes unattractive. Next, we must build a wall of friction. This is the inversion of the third law, make it easy. Instead, we must make it difficult. Human behavior follows the law of least effort. We naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least work. You can use this to your advantage by increasing the friction associated with bad behaviors. If you watch too much TV, unplug it after each use. Better yet, take the batteries out of the remote. Even better, move it into a closet after each use. The greater the friction, the less likely the habit. Want to eat less junk food? Don't buy it in the first place. If it's not in your house, you can't eat it. The ultimate way to do this is with a commitment device. This is a choice you make in the present that locks in better behavior in the future. The French author Victor Hugo famously used this strategy. Facing an impossible deadline for his book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he had his assistant lock away all of his clothes, leaving him with only a large shawl. Unable to go outside, he remained in his study and wrote furiously, finishing the book 2 weeks early. He made going outside difficult and staying in to write easy. You can do the same. If you want to cut calories, ask the waiter to box half your meal before it's even served. If you want to save money, set up an automatic savings plan that moves money into an account the day you get paid. These are one-time choices that automate good habits and make bad ones difficult. The price of failure and the path to mastery. Now for the final piece of the fortress. Making our bad habits unsatisfying. This is the inversion of the fourth law. We are more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. Therefore, we are less likely to repeat a bad habit if the experience is painful or unsatisfying. The key is that the consequence must be immediate. The problem with most bad habits is that the pain is delayed. Smoking might give you cancer in 20 years, but it relieves stress now. Eating a donut is pleasurable now. The weight gain comes later. To fix this, we need to add an instant cost to the action. And the best way to do this? Get an accountability partner. We care deeply about what other people think of us. Knowing that someone is watching can be a powerful motivator. You can take this even further and create a habit contract, a written agreement, where you state your intention and the punishment that will occur if you fail. For instance, Brian Harris, an entrepreneur, created a contract signed by himself, his wife, and his trainer. If he failed to log his food, he had to pay his trainer $200. If he failed to weigh himself, he had to give his wife $500. The cost was public and painful. It makes violating your promise unsatisfying. By making our bad habits invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying, we create a fortress that protects us from our worst impulses. But what comes next? What happens after we've built good habits and broken bad ones? How do we go from being merely good to being truly great? This brings us to the path of mastery. The upside of habits is that they allow us to perform actions without thinking. The downside is that once a habit is automatic, we stop paying attention to little errors. We fall into mindless repetition. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. We get bored with habits because they stop delighting us. To continue growing, we must follow the Goldilocks rule. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. You need to find challenges that push you to your edge while still making enough progress to stay motivated. This is where habits must be combined with deliberate practice. Mastery is the process of mastering one skill until it's automatic, then using that mental space to focus on the next, slightly harder skill. Think of the comedian Steve Martin. He spent 10 years learning, 4 years refining, and 4 years as a wild success. Every week, for 18 years, he got on stage. He kept the jokes that worked, which kept him motivated, but he always added a little bit of new material, which kept him working hard. He lived in that Goldilocks zone. This requires one final component: a system for reflection and review. Pat Riley, the legendary basketball coach, did this with his Lakers team through his Career Best Effort program, asking each player for just a 1% improvement and tracking it relentlessly. Reflection ensures you don't keep practicing a habit that has become ineffective. It allows you to notice if your old habits and beliefs are still serving you. It prevents your identity from becoming a cage. Instead of "I am a CEO," your identity can become "I am the type of person who builds and creates." An identity that can evolve with you. In the end, this is the secret to results that last. Success is not a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It is a system to improve, an endless process to refine. Conclusion: what we have learned. We began this journey with a simple mathematical truth. A 1% improvement every day leads to astonishing results. We learned that this power is often hidden from us, trapped in the valley of disappointment, a place where our linear expectations clash with the exponential reality of compounding. We dismantled the lies that hold us back. We discovered that the problem is never our level of motivation, but the flaws in our systems. We learned that we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. We then built, from the ground up, an unshakable architecture for change based on the 4 laws. We learned to make it obvious, to become the designers of our environment, and give our habits a time and a place to live. We learned to make it attractive, to harness the power of dopamine and temptation, and to join tribes where our desired behaviors are the norm. We learned to make it easy, to reduce friction, master the art of showing up with the 2-minute rule, and build walls to block our bad habits. And we learned to make it satisfying, to give ourselves immediate rewards, track our progress, and at a price, to failure. Finally, we looked beyond the basics to the path of mastery, understanding that the greatest enemy is not failure, but boredom, and that true growth comes from living on the edge of our abilities, always reflecting and refining. The holy grail of habit change is not a single 1% improvement, but 1,000 of them. It is the stacking of one atomic habit upon another that forms the building blocks of a remarkable life. Ultimately, your habits matter, because they are the channel through which you become the person you wish to be. Quite literally, you become your habits. This audiobook summary has given you the blueprint. The tools are now in your hands. But don't let this be the end. If this summary resonated with you, I urge you to pick up a copy of Atomic Habits by James Clear. Dive deeper into the stories, the science, and the strategies. Don't just learn about the architect, become one. Start with one small change today, just 1%, and watch it compound into a life you never thought possible.